They were friends in school, and they married other people.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we were hit record.
Yeah, yes. Okay.
Okay, can you, let's see, share the screen with them so they can see it?
I think they're already shared. Can you
Can
guys see
your
the,
presentation?
Yes.
you're good to go.
Okay, not the stuff behind us, but that says creating personally connected and meaningful learning experiences in asynchronous classes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
That's the title.
Okay, we were getting a little scared of the technology today. So we did a little dry run here, so we think we're good. Okay, well, welcome. We are going to give you some pointers today, me, Stacy Boggs, Mark Shore, and Kate Tomino, on what we do in our asynchronous online classes to make them meaningful and how to connect personally with our students. And this is something that's going to transpire with what's called Title IV and probably going to end up being a requirement here in a year or two. Okay.
There you go.
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to learn how to connect more personally with our students and how to make our classes more meaningful academically and personally and just better. Okay.
Okay. It's asynchronous.
Okay. Kate, you want to talk about asynchronous?
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Here?
Yeah.
Our notes are here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not one that has
Which is
them.
safety, but that's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he
It's
clicked
okay.
onto that.
It's
I
asynchronous.
was like, what is that? I don't have, okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Kate Tomino, and I'm a teacher ed. But I also teach some synchronous and asynchronous classes. And asynchronous is when you have very limited, if any, face-to-face, or even sometimes even just being able to see their face communication. So everything is kind of laid out so that students have a particular amount of time, they have a particular amount of assignments, and it's up to them to be self-independent and being self-learners. And then with synchronous, it's a little bit different. It's still online. However, you are able to participate more. Your students are able to participate more, and you can design some really great activities and strategies that will increase the amount of participation and engagement and connections to your students.
One thing I'd say real quick about this is that even though we're talking about asynchronous online classes, students can treat that as synchronous by attending office hours. And I've had students before attend office hours the whole amount of time, the whole semester, basically treating it like a synchronous course. So that can happen.
Okay. And then here is a little Venn diagram, throw the math terms in there, that we made that compares the asynchronous and synchronous classes and the benefits of both. And you can see that there is overlap between the synchronous and asynchronous, mainly that students can attend from anywhere. We communicate regularly with our students, and the students can make connections with people across various time zones, cultural, socioeconomic, outside the region, students that we wouldn't normally meet if we were tethered to an on-campus class. Okay.
I'm sorry,
Mhm.
can I
Yeah.
just step in there?
Mhm.
Okay,
So I've had lots of conversations with other people. I teach flex class and asynchronous class, well, and then my classes here at ACM that are face-to-face. And a lot of times, I don't know, we kind of feel like people think that it's easier. It is not. It is really, really hard to find ways that you feel like you're really getting through and you're having a connection with students. It takes loads and loads of front loading and making videos, which we'll talk about in a little bit, trying to communicate with students, keeping office hours. There's so much more that kind of is in that realm that face-to-face does not, its barriers of face-to-face does not have. So I just wanted to highlight
Perfect.
that.
Right. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that so far?
Good.
Everybody's muted.
Okay, we're good. Go ahead. We'll be rolling.
Okay. All right. So the key difference between an asynchronous class and a correspondence class, and this is where Title IV comes in, and where we're headed in the future for financial aid will not pay for a correspondence class, but it will pay for asynchronous education. The difference is the amount of interaction that you have with your students and how academically meaningful the interaction is. So that's the whole focus of our presentation today. So the benefits of asynchronous learning is that a lot of our students here at Allegheny College are older students, non-traditional students, working adults. They might be from outside of the area. I know I get many, many, many students from Texas, and I love my Texas students. So the nursing program, please keep sending me students from Texas. I love them. And a lot of times we might have students that have varying learning styles. So the asynchronous classes are good for all of those.
Well, we have students with full-time jobs. I think Stacy said that, and then also students with family responsibilities. Many children, I know so many of the students in my class, female with kids and single. And it's, you know, they cannot take a class at a specific time, and you know they may have to do it when they're, you know, the LPN to RN, they have to do that when they're not doing their LPN job. So and it really helps with the online programs such as nursing, data analytics, and other online programs. So okay. Yeah.
You had talked about an autistic student that you had that benefited.
Oh yeah, that was on this last slide.
Yeah,
right here.
that's
Sorry.
another benefit. We'll go back to the
okay.
other one.
There you go.
And when we were talking about students with varying learning styles, I had a student with accommodations from Dr. Bracken, and the student was autistic, and the online asynchronous class was perfect because the student was able to focus on the class on their own time, their own pace. They weren't distracted by noises and other distractions that happen in a face-to-face class. They were able to watch the videos and read the transcripts of the videos as opposed to trying to take notes and participate in a face-to-face class where there was a lot of distractions.
You know, and also asynchronous learning is how we do most of our training here at AC, our cybersecurity training, our Brightspace training. And it's basically the majority of people that are going to see this video that we're making right now will see it asynchronously.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know from my own kids, they have to do a lot of training at their jobs. And so they have to do, you know, it asynchronously. So they have to get used to this,
Yep.
this type of learning.
Did we talk about that?
Yeah, so this we
okay.
may have
Yeah,
said this, but
course.
in terms of broadening a student's social awareness, for my example, in statistics classes, I have justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion issues in there from real life data that you'll see on later slides. And I get comments that they like those real life problems, but I have other real life problems in there that do it have that. But the social awareness is still in the course, and it doesn't take away from that. In fact, you said about people getting to know people of different cultures.
Right. Mark has a lot of problems in his classes that are
Deal with
based
different
on
cultures and
social,
race.
right.
But you have the people.
Yeah, I had the people. I've had students, like I said, mainly from Texas, Florida. One semester I had a student who was in Puerto Rico. I had a student who moved to Hawaii in the middle of the semester. So I have a broad spectrum of students, and it's good for people to get to know people outside of our Appalachian area.
Right. And so they'll see that. In fact, I had a student that didn't know what a nickel was because she was, you know, just has only been in the country a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
So these are the this is from Open LMS, which is a open learning management system. These are the what they recognize as the 5 best practices for asynchronous learning. And the first one is they listed have a detailed syllabus, and I added to that have a detailed syllabus and your LMS site. Because when you think about when you want to teach online, whether it be synchronous or asynchronous, we have to get our syllabus and our site approved by Tammy Miller that goes through it and checks it for everything. And so just some notes about this. First of all, when I say syllabus, I mean your syllabus and your LMS. It has to be detailed. Like you have to give specific stuff. And they're about, how grading will work, clearly outlining the course content as well as the scheduled assessments and the learning material, how to use the learning material. You have to include methods used to present the learning materials used for communication. So this could be like, for example, for me, I want them to use a forum for math questions, only the forum for math questions, and you'll see why later, but because it shows it much nicer there. But for messaging, you can use email or you can use a message feature in our LMS. But we like to say that you want to say that ahead of time. And the site, like right now, our sites are open for summer school and students are already rolling. Well, for the A term, they're already open. We have to get them open. And we already have students that have finished an assignment for A term summer. And so it has to be there. And we want it. Frostburg actually is required to have their syllabus up on their sites 2 weeks ahead of schedule. And they're not assignments, but they have to have their syllabus there. And that's to let a student know right off the bat, is this really for me, or should I be thinking about another, semester or another method of taking the course? You have to make it easy to navigate. That's one thing that Tammy looks for. And then also we want to have single sign-on. If you're going to other external material, there's a feature on Brightspace called LTI, which allows single sign-on. So I'll go ahead and go on to the next slide. I think these are my slides. Second thing here is setting the course pace. So you have to have a course calendar that evenly divides the workload and if possible, allow students to work ahead. I know some people don't like that, but that's a good thing to do. We also have late passes. Sometimes a student can't get done an assignment in time or has situations. So both Stacy and I have late passes or exemptions. And if you're dealing with let's say in an English course or a writing course, a large paper, you might want to break that into smaller assignments. So, and you have your printable calendar.
Yeah, I have both a printable calendar and an interactive calendar. And I actually have we'll see here later in another slide, I have 5 places where the dates are posted and people will still say, I don't know when it's due. So,
I want to add one more thing, and I know that we're going to be going there at some point anyway. But sometimes we're going to talk about feedback, and if you break huge projects down, that's a great way to be able to give students feedback on portions so that at the end you've got this awesome assignment to grade.
Yep.
Good.
So the other thing is you have to establish concrete due dates. So again, that's on a calendar. And if possible, make those due dates regular dates. Like, for example, throughout the semester, maybe you might have things on Tuesdays and Thursdays or when things are due, tests on Friday or whatever. But if you can, that's a nice thing to do. And again, like Stacy has said, put them in different places. She has here a printable calendar and so on. And also, if you have things that are not right or wrong, if there's a rubric, then make sure that the rubric is attached.
And one other thing I'll add about the due dates, since we have students all across various time zones, I went through and had to put Eastern on all of mine. So all of mine are due Friday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. And I did that because I had a student a couple of semesters ago that was in Hawaii. She was in the Cumberland area, and then her husband had to go to Hawaii for work. He was a traveling physician, and she went with him, and I don't blame her. And she was doing the material, and she submitted it, and I believe it was 6 o'clock in the morning here, but she had met the 11:59 p.m. deadline in Hawaii. And so it was kind of a tedious task to fix, but I was able to go back in and take the late penalties off. So you want to be sure that you put your time zone in there as well.
Go ahead and talk about this one.
Meaningful feedback. I like to give immediate feedback, and my math lab, MML, it has a feature that I can give feedback immediately to the students once they submit a problem. So that's nice. That's kind of a prepackaged feedback, but still they know if the problem is right or wrong. And then we do regular feedback through emails, phone calls, text messages, and if they need to see the problem, can use the X Pen technology, and we'll show that in a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So we also want to leverage interactive tools. And this is the fifth thing on the 5 best practices. And so here we're talking about one of the things is video for sure, but there's different types of videos. There's full course videos, which we have that in our courses, but there's also the short videos that could maybe only be 5 minutes or so show a specific problem, and you can link that to the problem so that the video is hooked to that problem. There's also what seems even more popular are written examples that are linked to problems that students can they don't have to dig through. Right. So while asynchronous learning transpires at different times in different spaces, it doesn't need to feel that way for the learners. So you have your specific help linked to it, short videos linked to problems, and you have you could have interactive situations, for probability and statistics, it may be rolling a dice or whatever. And we also have forums and so on like that. But all those are the leveraging the interactive tools, and you need that before you can get into you have to have that before you can get into the meaningful problems.
Does anyone have any questions about the 5 best practices before we go on to our first objective?
Okay, just let us know.
Just like a face-to-face class. Everyone's very quiet. Okay, so our first objective is going to be how we can connect more personally with our students. Okay, so we just have some examples here of what the 3 of us do.
So using video.
Okay, so first up is Kate.
Okay. So, and I bet that you've probably heard me talk about this the next slide, but video does really help me get to know my students that are not in front of me, but also for them to get to know me, even if it's just your personality. It kind of can boost, what they're into and what they can imagine on the other side of the screen. So the application that I use all the time is Loom, and it is free. It will screencast everything. It will do all the recording, transcripts, you name it, it's there. So the way to get it free and to make as many as you want is you go to the membership tab on Loom, and then go all the way to the bottom of the screen, and it'll ask if you want to validate that you are an educator, and then you get it free, make as many as you want. So there are 4 links here on this screen. And the first one is actually a tutorial that I made a long time ago on how to use Loom. So we'll just start that so you can see what it
Site reports
cannot be found.
Let's try this one.
Okay. Hopefully the links didn't go.
Well, they worked just the other day.
Okay.
So just the first one.
Yeah. So the first one, the tutorial wasn't there, but I will make sure that that you get that, but it shows you how to use it. And the funny thing is, when I rewatched it, I had done the whole thing without recording it and then had to go back. So I saw a lot of my mistakes. So the other ones that you're seeing here, this was a student during COVID, we could not tutor. So my students joined Loom and they would read books. They would show students like how to play games outside, how to use cards to play math games, lots of different things so that they could at least connect with students even though we couldn't be there. So this was a student, Brandy, who is reading a book. So if you just want to.
Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Miss Gilman. I am a 2nd year student at Allegheny College of Maryland, where I am taught how to teach elementary school. Today we're going to be reading.
So what's cool about this is you can be the center of your your class, I guess you could say. But you can also make yourself smaller so you can see what is behind you, and you can run everything on your screen just like you would if students were in front of you. So it's a really great resource to use, and I've used it so much within my asynchronous and flex classes that I feel like my students know me better because they see my face in every module, and so, at least we can kind of have that. And once, if you have office hours like Stacy and Mark do, you could kind of be like, oh, hey, so-and-so, remember when we talked about this? That's gonna beef up a lot of connection with your students. So this is a great resource, and it's free. So
Get this
Okay.
back up, I think.
Whoops,
yeah.
Process.
there are just several others on there.
There
other
just
Okay.
examples.
That's okay. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll.
Yeah, 'cause we've got a lot.
Mhm.
And the way that I like to interact with my students is I'm kind of addicted to email. I know that's kind of old fashioned, and who would have thought email would be old fashioned, but I email all of my students, all of them, after every unit. And during spring break this year, I emailed every single one of my students. And this was when there was the issue with the Brightspace email. I cried for a couple of days because 0 got the emails from me. So
Because that's
it
when it
was
went
bad.
down.
That was when it went down. And I didn't know that until nobody was replying. And then I was like, oh no, you didn't reply. But in this email, there's a conversation here with a student, and I asked her if I could use the screenshot, and she said yes. And so I sent her an email that I was checking in for, what was that, unit 4. And she told me that she struggled with it. And then you can't see the rest of the emails, but we went back and forth, and then we actually ended up having a phone conversation about it.
Yeah, I would say that emails are a really important thing. And Stacy gets outstanding student evaluations from doing this stuff, and
I just
especially
read
the
them. Pat
emails.
myself on the back.
And like a person just said that I get at least 3 emails a week from Dr. Boggs.
From the
So
old
there you
lady who still sends emails.
Yeah. But they read.
Yeah, they do. And then another thing that I do is to connect personally with my students is I have varying office hours. And I noticed when most of my classes were on campus and I had office hours Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8, nobody showed up. So what I started doing was on Monday, I would send a link out that said where I was going to be on campus, generally in this room, Science 27, what time I would be there. And then you can see down toward the bottom of the screen, there's a Teams link. And so a lot of times students would come in to see me. I noticed on Fridays, the on-campus students would show up. And interestingly enough, Tuesday evenings from 5 to 7 is when most of my Texas students showed up. And we think it's probably because of the difference in the time zone. And during this online meeting with my students, again, I could use my X Pen so they could see what I was writing if they had a question. They could see me face to face. We could chit chat just like we are now with you all. And it just was a really, really positive way to do office hours where everybody was included, nobody was excluded, and I could get to know my students. So I'm really happy with how this worked out.
Yeah, I think this is a really good idea, this thing, because where Stacy just had the compliment about emailing a student 3 times a week, his office hours were at a time that I couldn't attend. And I do put in my syllabus that and also on my LMS saying that if you have a different time that you need to meet, let me know. But I mean, I just think they don't really remember that when it comes up. So I think a note out every week, like, maybe even asking the students what time would be good for me to have an office hour, and maybe you might get a regular customer like I had.
And I would
special
even do
skill.
things on weekends if I couldn't be on campus for an office hour, then I would do like a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon. And that worked out well. So in summary, to connect personally in an asynchronous class, you really want to have personal, frequent interaction. And that Title 4 is coming up again, where the interaction has to be frequent.
So we're to objective 2 here.
Go ahead.
Okay, so objective 2 is how can we make our learning experiences more meaningful? So on this one, we want to get some meaningful learning out of our online courses, and the next couple slides will go into that. And I guess this one's mine here. So these, so both Stacy and I use a specific math LMS. So we start off with Brightspace, and then we put an LTI link on that, which means that when a student clicks on that, they just don't go to the site and have to sign on. It creates an account for the student. And if we ever use, you might be thinking about Class for Zoom is going to do that, and other places are going to do this, where you don't have to go out and get it and students won't have to sign into a different place. With an LTI link, they click on it, it creates an account for them, and they are into that course. So we use, I use my Open Math, and Stacy used MML,
My math lab.
my math lab, which is both are single sign-on. And that's possible to do that now with the LTI link that is in Brightspace. Now, a lot of people don't know how the math sites work. The reason why we use these sites is because they have features that are specific to math. And one of the main features is that they have algorithmically generated problems. What that means is that these problems, let's say, you will say a projectile is fired at 60 degrees, when will it hit the ground? Well, that's 60 degrees. That's going to be a variable, and it's going to change from, let's say, 0 to 90 degrees, and everybody's going to get a different problem. And right, and then the velocity will change. When will it hit the ground? Or it might say, when is it 20 feet high? And when you have all these things that could change in that problem, you can end up with millions of versions of one problem. It's like how many different phone numbers are there? There's millions of different phone numbers, and that's what happens. Every single problem that we create has millions of different versions, and every problem works that way. So that means that every student gets very similar problem, but just with different numbers. And also, we could have pools in there so that maybe one might be a projectile, and one might be, more about a bridge or something that still has the same shape. And they have to figure out when will the bridge be 1,000 feet high or something like that, or what horizontal distance. So it really keeps the students from cheating off of each other, because they're all going to have different problems. But it also, in terms of homework problems, we allow 5 attempts on every problem. Then if they miss 5 in a row, they can just say, give me another problem. So they basically get infinite tries at every homework problem. So that's a nice thing.
That I'm going to chime in. That
Go
was
ahead.
one of the things in my evaluation that I just read. A student said that they really appreciated the fact that they could do the problems over and over and over. And she said that before, when she just had one problem out of the book and had to turn it in, where she probably copied the answer out of the back of the book, it was meaningless, but this gave meaning to it. So I was real happy about that. At least somebody is learning something.
So I'll show you the examples we have. So we get used to this stuff because we've been doing it for a long time, but a lot of people haven't seen these things. So one thing that we have is, this is an example of not just a regular algorithmically generated problem, but the answer is based on the student's response to the first part of the problem. So on this problem, it says, make your best guess for the percentage of females students at ACM. And notice it says ACM here, because with these problems, you can edit them, and you can, put in, like, instead of saying at Colorado State University, you can say this, or you can say the Dean Kurt Hoffman, or whatever. You can make it very specific. You can put in, your own student's name or whatever. So they're just making a guess. Now, this is a student guess here of 30%. This is what they think the percentage of females are. Now, assuming your estimate for part A is correct, what percentage of male students are there? Well, the right answer now is 70%, because your guess was 30% for females, so it must be 70%, or 1 minus 30%, 70% that are male. And, so this is based on students. This is the random variable that's actually used. So this is a pretty advanced type of problem. And notice that the equation editor comes up. So if it was messy stuff, they don't even have to type in 70%. They could type in 1 minus 0.3. That would work. They can type in, if the answer ends up being the square root of 2 over 7, they just type it in and they get it. They don't have to use a calculator, because they just type this in, and that's the best way to do it because it's no rounding involved in this.
So they
that's the
can type
questionnaire.
actual,
Actual math, and yours
Right.
has that too. Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah, it's great. There's no rounding issue. So this is just another example, and I was going to show you what the code looks like for these problems, because with My Open Math, you can write your own problems. And so this one is about estimating the standard deviation. You see, I have Allegheny College of Maryland. I put in there. I put your guesses. They get to guess. And then they use the ZMT sheet. This is an Excel sheet I wrote for the course. And they do this problem. Now, the way this problem came about is I wrote this problem, and I won't go into the code of it, but this is the code I used to write that one particular problem. There's like 400 problems in statistics, and that's the code for one of them. But if you're afraid of writing code, you can download complete courses or just there's a million questions on My Open Math. So you can just take them from questions, and that's what you do, right, on
Right.
MML.
From the question pools.
Yeah.
That makes sense
So,
too.
yeah, and I'll go ahead and go through these. So every problem at the bottom of the problem has these 3 links: video, written example, and post to form. So I was just showing you here's, a video that is linked to the bottom of a problem in statistics, which is on conditional probability. And it's a very real life, meaningful problem, which is a true statistics about getting a false positive with breast cancer. And we work this out on the video, and then the students work that out, their own problem. And besides the video, they also have a written example linked. And so you can see on this one, this is a different problem, but this one is about the incarceration rates of African Americans compared to white folk. And it gives you the percentages. And then this is the example that's linked to the problem. Now, the numbers are slightly different between the example and the problem that the students have, but I make sure that both the example and the real problem are extremely close to the actual values, in the United States.
So that adds to the social justice.
Right
and
there.
Incorporating
And,
real
so-
life examples into the class as well.
Yeah, and it's a pretty hard problem. So the other thing they can do is post questions to the forum link. Now, I always tell students either write what you did on the problem or do a screenshot of it. So this is what a student posted to the forum. Can someone tell me what the heck I'm doing wrong? I did a 2-tailed test, and this is a hypothesis test for difference of 2 proportions. They just click one button, that post to forum button, and they posted this. Then they can attach either type stuff, like type the math that they did, plus it will type it in pretty font. Like if it was X over 2, it will show as X over 2, not like some sort of little slash mark. And then they attach the Excel sheet with their numbers in it, what they did, and then I can look through it. And if you check, and students see this too. And so here's a student, crossed out her name. She said, try taking the alpha level out. And then I wrote back, check the numbers you typed in. The cell where you have 0.1 should be this. So you had to type in something wrong. That was a very, very difficult one to try to find what was wrong with that problem. I did check it later, and she did get the problem right. I don't know if she had to do a different version of the problem, but she did get it right. And then there's messaging within My Open Math. There's messaging, and this student said, now I see why you told us to work ahead. I'm heading home, and that sort of thing. And so she said, thank you for allowing us to use late passes. And that's where they're allowed to do a homework assignment up to 3 days late. So, and then this is yours, Stacy.
Well, before I go on, does anyone have any questions for Mark?
Yep, if you do, just let us know.
Are you all still there?
They're all muted.
Okay, well, continuing on, and again, we'll see more about Title IV, I'm sure, in the future. One of the things to make classes meaningful that it states in Title IV is that the instructor sets the pace of the course. And we talked about this a little bit earlier with all of our due dates and deadlines and things. And this is just an example that I have of my printable calendar that they get in the very, very beginning of the semester. In fact, I have it posted on Brightspace, usually at least a week before the class starts, so that students will know everything that they're going to have to do and when they're going to have to do it. And if there's an issue, if you have to work, if you're going, to be out of town, if something happens, you have the calendar as a guide, and I will work with students to adjust as needed. Oh, and also, if you'll notice down in the bottom corner, there's me. Okay, I'm actually teaching over Teams at this point to a group and explaining the calendar. So this was a screenshot of me actually showing the calendar.
And this is my calendar on my open math for this past semester. And you can see here how the homework assignments and everything was on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And, the office hours are listed. And when you click on a particular day, like here, I clicked on April 4th, because, just a month ago or so, you can see at the bottom, there's the Zoom link. They just click on the Zoom link and boom, they're on. So, that's very important when you're doing an asynchronous course to have that laid out there like that. All right.
Okay. And then here's an example, again, from Title IV, where we have established concrete expectations through the syllabus, announcements, assignment descriptions, and the calendar. So I have just an example here of my due dates and when they're due and the prerequisite, and then the example of my interactive calendar. So if you don't know when something is due in my class, I don't know how else to help
Right.
you.
And then this is really nice here.
Oh, this is my favorite. I've mentioned a couple of times XPen technology. Mark was talking earlier about how you don't need an expensive whiteboard for several $1,000s. My XPen looks like an old-fashioned clipboard with a stylus that you write with. It costs $29.99 on Amazon, had it in 2 days, and it allows me to write, and then the students can see what I'm writing. So if someone needs help with a problem, I can write it out just like I would on the board. And the really nice thing is I can save it and share it to other people in the class, because for this problem, number 20 of whatever section this happened to be, if one student has a section, we all know from teaching that everybody else in the class probably has a question on that same section. And you can see me again in the corner down at the bottom actually teaching this so that everybody could see it on the screen, and then I can save it for future classes as well. So I have a lot of class lecture notes that I've accumulated from past courses and examples, and until they change the textbook, I'm still good with the examples and can use them.
Yeah. So here's a few examples I have in my course. One example in statistics is I have the students do a graphing project that they take real life data, filter it. We go over how to filter and sort data in Excel, and they have to get their own data and then do a few graphs on it. And it's a requirement that it has to be about some social justice issue, and it could be health related too, And so I'll just show you a couple of these real quick. Here's a student that did, they have to do multiple graphs on the issue, but I just showed one from a couple of students here. And this was about breast cancer cases and mortality for women of different races. And then this is, here's number of homeless people per state that a person did on that. And then this person had an Excel sheet on a whole bunch of, like
global warming.
Yeah, but it had every country in the world. And then they sorted the data and for some reason picked Argentina. Maybe it was an A, one of the first countries that came up. And then he made this really nice graph showing the increase in temperatures. And a few problems that I have involving social issue type problems is this is about pay equity. And this is an Excel sheet that has about 2,000 people involved in it from a particular company. And you know how you always hear males make more than females at a job, and people will kind of downplay that and say, well, that's because males had more education, or maybe that's because males worked there longer. But what you can do with this sheet is it gives you a number of years there, education, and so on. And they go through and they do this problem with real life data, and they can find that no matter how you sort the data, females made less, no matter what. On this data. So and it's real life data, So here's the sheet is linked here, and I have a video that shows them how to use the Excel sheet in the course to run the test. This is on police shootings, and this one shows the number of blacks shot and killed by police and how many were unarmed. They have to do this because they have the data for all of it. This is several thousand people are in this Excel sheet, real people, and then they get I have the answers here showing for you, and then they get the percentages, and then they can see here that the percentage of blacks shot that were unarmed is 10.19% compared to males, which is 5.58%. So those are real statistics. And I don't tell them these statistics. They have to do it from the raw data.
Real social
Real,
justice
for sure.
problems.
And I just was showing you here the Excel sheet that I wrote the Excel sheet that they use. So they don't have to do these things by hand. They can just put it in.
I want to piggyback a little bit on what Mark was saying. So, giving students real life examples of anything is really going to help, especially because like your department, you don't have majors, you don't have math majors. And so showing them, hey, this is really important for you to know. It can help you kind of expand on what you know about the world. It can make it more relevant to, I'm going to need to know this, later on in life. And I mean, just reading data from magazines or newspaper articles or anything like that, a lot of students don't know how to do that because they don't really understand what the process is for collecting that data. So, and a lot of the things that Stacy and Mark are talking about are math-based. However, there are lots of other sites and applications that you can use to find pools of questions and those kinds of things. So don't think that just because we're bringing forth math resources that we can't find these elsewhere. Okay, so this is the huge part of my dissertation. So you're going to probably see this a lot in the next year, but this is an instructional model that I'm using to produce a professional development course on synchronous and asynchronous learning. So I can't really do a whole lot with this, during our time today, but there's a couple that I really want to point out. And the first one is actually the last thing in the model, which is planning and organization. The amount of planning that goes into asynchronous learning is unreal.
Hours.
Yes, hours. And you have to
hours.
predict every situation that may happen. You have to make sure that all your dates, coincide. You have to make sure that your syllabus really does reflect what you have on your LMS. And it's unreal how much goes into that. And then you have to make sure, okay, did I overwhelm anybody? Do I have enough resources for them to understand? Did I connect with them? It's so much there. So planning and organization is a huge part of asynchronous learning. Then when you look at the rest of them, a lot of the reading and listening, writing and reflecting, displays, doing and acting, those kinds of things are more resources and the kind of assignments that you may want to give. It's the things like coaching, conviviality that build your trust within your students. So with coaching, you are giving them really good feedback and you are, trying to interact with them, whether it's through email or a video conference, whatever it may be. And then with conviviality, you have to have a really strong set of expectations right at the get-go. Because, like Stacey said, if I say this is due Eastern and, someone doesn't, really take that to heart, you can have a lot of things that occur.
A lot of issues.
Yes. So with asynchronous learning, it takes a long time to build trust. And, you have to make sure that you are, respectful and empathetic to your students, but they also have to realize that you're a person too. We make mistakes, but we have expectations. And as a group, you are that class. And as a group, we need to make sure that we meet those expectations. So, okay.
Very good. Any questions for Kate on that before we go to mastery learning? Okay. Well, another way to make learning meaningful is mastery learning. And this is very important in math because math is cumulative. And I like that we can build things into our courses for students that have gaps in their knowledge, because a few years ago, students had the option to take Math 83, but we don't offer that anymore. And a lot of times they're thrown right into Math 90, beginning algebra, and they're not ready for it. So we do mastery learning with a benchmark of 70%, and that plays into the assessment role as well. And then that way we're sure that students who need the extra help have resources available to fill in those gaps in their knowledge. So we'll go through this kind of quickly because we're running out of time. One of the things that we do is I have in my classes prerequisites set with a benchmark of 70%. Now this is a homework assignment. So hopefully everyone is getting 70% on the homework, because we have found in math classes, if you get less than 70%, you're probably not going to be successful in the next level. And then my math lab has a mastery learning feature built in that's, my husband was involved with just-in-time manufacturing. Well, this is just-in-time learning, where you get what you need when you need it. And if you, let me take the cursor. I don't know, can they see
I don't
it?
know. Can you?
Okay, right there where it says in the purple, the study plans. Can you all see that? What that does is you can progress through the homework. And I did have the study plans on the homework assignments, but that tended to overwhelm, whoops, tended to overwhelm students with way too many problems. So I put the study plan as a prerequisite on the quiz and the test if you want to take a second attempt. So you can take your first attempt as long as you got a 70% on the last homework. But if you need additional help, it will kick you back to the study plan, and you have to do that before you can use an additional attempt on the quiz. And that has proven to be very effective, because students then go back and fill in the gaps that they have in their knowledge. Okay. Feedback in an asynchronous class, a lot of times, is instantaneously, which is a lot better than in a face-to-face class where students might turn in a pencil paper assignment. I grade it, give it back to them the next week, and by then they forget what it was that they had a problem with. Here, they know immediately if it's right. It says nice job, good work, whatever. And if it's incorrect, you can see there's a little feedback that gives them a hint to what they did incorrectly. Okay. Also, I have tutoring built in instantly. I have Help Me Solve It and View an Example. So these can all be viewed asynchronously. The View an Example gives you everything step by step. And then when you go back, you have the same problem that you were working on. With the Help Me Solve It, it helps you solve the exact problem that you're given step by step, same as the example. But when you go back, you have a new problem. So you can't just put the answer in.
Now, the new problem is going to be the same problem
It's
with
the
different
same
numbers.
problem,
with
different
numbers.
quantitative
We just got to go through the
values.
same process.
Right. Yeah. And if they take good notes, they should be able to do it. Okay. And then the feature that I like and that my online students use a lot is called Ask My Instructor. This, when they click the Ask My Instructor button, it will send an email to me where they can type in the question that they have. And it also sends me a screenshot of what they're working on. So I know immediately that this student was working on section 7.6, proportions and problem solving with rational expressions, and they can ask me a question and I know what it is without having to find it. I know it's problem 2025. So that's
But we need them to show their work.
They do.
And sometimes
Yeah.
when I get questions, there's no work, it's just a question. And I always say, I need to see your work. How can I find out what you're doing wrong unless I see your work?
And this gives me that where, you know, they just say, oh, I have a question on number 25. Well, okay.
What's the question? You know, like,
That's
where are
why
you
I
having
know.
trouble? Show me what you did.
All right.
So this
So,
one is
mastery.
mine. So I also like to give feedback within my email because mainly because I can go back and look at it and I feel like it's a quicker way, you know, to kind of talk with students. But as you can see on the left side, this is these are the discussion places where I put different sections of a large project. So this is a big lesson plan. This is one of the first lesson plans that my students have to write. And you know, we think as educators that that's easy, but for a young student who is just learning, it's really tough. So I break them up into pieces. They can either upload it into that discussion and I give them feedback in the comments or in a new thread, or they can email it to me, which is my preference. And so what you see on the right side then are the comments or suggestions that I added for what their work has already included, which is in the middle. That's the start of their lesson plan. So then what I can do is I can say, okay, I want you to attach your next section either to the next discussion or to this email. And that way I can go back and say, okay, I told you to do this, this, and this. Let's see if you took those suggestions. But it's so nice to be able to have a one-on-one communication, even if it's just email. Or comments on, you know, on Brightspace or MML or MOM, whatever it may be. It really does make a big difference to help students to have the best success that they can in their major assignments.
And you have a great framework there for writing a lesson plan.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
I've been reading through it.
Yes.
Okay, so in summary here of objective 2, we can make our classes meaningful by mastery learning, by feedback, just-in-time tutoring, all of those kind of things contribute to making it meaningful for the student. Okay.
All right.
And then just some summaries here at the end, just highlighting again the differences between asynchronous and synchronous. And correspondence classes, asynchronous, the students have a lot of responsibility for their learning. It's not teacher-centered, it's student-centered. And we have a lot of interactions, frequent interactions that are meaningful.
But even with asynchronous classes, Math 90, which these students have a low reading ability, I think because of the use of videos and all the extra help, they can still pass the course. And in
Yes.
fact, the pass rates, we've checked it many times. Our online course pass rates compared to face-to-face classes have pretty much equivalent pass rates. Sometimes
Better.
a little higher, sometimes a little lower, but it's super tight right there that the differences are not significant at all. They're right there.
Okay. All right, and just one thing, we have our SurveyMonkey link, and Mark, you might need to copy that and put that in the chat for them.
Okay. I'll hit
And
escape.
then also everything that we just did with our presentation is available in the folder that Kurt created. And then there is also some handout material that Kate created that is also in there. Nobody's in the room with us, so hopefully you all will look at it. And then before we leave, could we just ask that everybody turn their cameras on so we can see that there are actually real
So-
people out there?
Stuff.
Oh, there they are.
And
Yay.
I'm going to put in that survey link right now as soon as I can find the chat area. I think
There we
it's
go.
chat. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And does
you.
anyone have any questions or comments? Look at you in your car.
yeah, but don't forget to fill out the survey link, or you can open up the PowerPoint presentation. And all the notes are underneath of it, where you'll see the survey link. So you could do it later. You don't have to do it while you're driving.
Please
Oh,
don't
I'm
do-
in the passenger. We're driving to our daughter's graduation.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
that's right.
Where is graduation?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, awesome. What school?
College of Charleston.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice. Congratulations.
Well, hey, thank you for attending.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.